I gotta look after my dudes.
Hey, and if your dudes were a better match for me, I'd say, oh, okay, you got me. But that's not the case, and you know it. He's a great match for me.
Yeah, no.
Hey, you could do anything you want to him. Throw him off a building, right? Light him on fire. Hit him with a Lincoln, right? Get creative. Do whatever you want. He's just happy for the opportunity.
Rick?
Yeah.
I don't dig him.
As you could probably tell from that clip, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is a very different movie for director Quentin Tarantino. Not since Jackie Brown has he been so focused on character introspection and development. Instead of being peppered with extremely violent scenes, like his other work, he saves it all for the end. And in lieu of those violent moments, he gives us a portrait of 3 different characters and their perspective on Hollywood. Leonardo Dicaprio plays Rick Dalton, a once big television star that failed to make the leap from television to movies. His fame is fading and he hates the thought of it disappearing completely. Margot Robbie plays Sharon Tate, who was a rising movie star in the 1960s. Her character treats every day and moment as a blessing. She seems happy to be in Hollywood at all, and never lets anything get her down. Brad Pitt plays an aging stuntman, who is content with the small piece of life that he carved out for himself, and jumps at the opportunity to do any type of work. Throughout the movie's runtime, we expect the typical outburst of Tarantino violence, but it almost never comes. We spend the majority of the time with the main characters, watching them live out their day-to-day life. This is the most restrained that I've ever seen this director be. It reminds me of his film Jackie Brown, due to its themes and amount of character development, but the movie doesn't limit itself to the themes of Jackie Brown. The film overall seems to be about a time in Hollywood where the newer generation were pushing out all the old-timers and propping up a newer generation of film and filmmakers, more specifically the Easy Rider generation. This is maybe the director reflecting on the current state of Hollywood and how certain types of films don't get made anymore. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood has a structure more akin to a novel than the typical Hollywood movie. There is a flashback scene that seems so long that it feels like it could be its own chapter in a book, and while that may sound unappealing, I can assure you that it's one of the film's best scenes. There is a scene where Rick Dalton is determined to show everyone that he's still a great actor, and the presentation of that scene makes me wish that Tarantino would direct a classic American Western. The acting from Dicaprio is some of the best in his career. His stutter is convincing and subtle. Whenever he talks, you can hear him trying to hide it. Pitt's performance here reminds me of his earlier, more laid-back roles. Here, he's very laid-back but still tough, very reminiscent of the TV cowboys from the 60s. His and DiCaprio's are some of the most complex characters that Tarantino has ever written. Maybe it just seems that way because we actually get to learn something about who they are, and they're not just out for revenge or helping someone get revenge. The attention to detail in this movie is just fantastic. Everything looks period accurate, from the food to the TV to the radio commercials and locations. It's all just perfect. If you love this era of Hollywood, then you're going to love all the references, especially if you like the TV show Lancer. This movie is pretty much guaranteed an Oscar nomination for Best Production Design and Costume Design. A nomination I can also see it getting is Best Cinematography, as the film looks stunning, especially when watched on 35mm film. The pan out from Rick Dalton's driveway is just impressive, and there are many other shots just like that in the movie. The violence in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is the most brutal that I've ever seen from this director. Granted, that scene of intense violence is still hilarious, but man, that shot of the chick getting her face destroyed made me wince. This movie has one of the most optimistic endings to a Quentin Tarantino film, and it's probably my favorite. Maybe it symbolizes his hope for the future of Hollywood. One of the issues I have with the movie is Zoe Bell's acting in the flashback scene, as it's kind of bad when compared to the other actors in the scene. I can't help but be annoyed whenever she pops up in one of Tarantino's films, as she can't play anyone but herself, which takes you out any scene she's in. Tarantino's foot fetish is also heavily featured in this movie, which I usually wouldn't mind, as it's usually only 1 or 2 shots that last a couple seconds, but here those shots last a long time, with the feet placed in the center of the frame, which always made me chuckle. The tension of the film is also heavily reliant on the viewer knowing of the Manson family murders. That's just a nitpick though, as who doesn't know about the Manson murders? There's also a scene where Margot Robbie's character views a film in which the real Sharon Tate starred in, and they don't try to make her look like Margot at all. And I know this was done to pay respect to the actress, but it felt off considering they placed DiCaprio in The Great Escape. Overall, I would say Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is a great character study, celebration, and examination of a certain transitional period in Hollywood. I would recommend you see it if you don't mind Tarantino straying from his usual style